Welcome to Acumen Corporation's webinar on inventory optimization for distributors and manufacturers. If you give us 45 minutes of your time this morning, you will walk away with some very profitable ideas. We at Acumen have discovered something everyone on this call is aware of. You can't sell what you can't ship. Order fulfillment issues hurt your sales and your pocket. My name is Chip Lowell, and I am VP of Business Development for Acumen. During our webinar, you will learn to improve order fulfillment rates dramatically while maintaining optimal cash reserves and just right inventory levels, and as another benefit, keep your sales force very happy. Ensure that your inventory is in the right place at the right time based upon your customers' buying trends and other key factors. Track and predict obsolescence in time to take action. Optimize volume discounts and other purchasing advantages based upon real data rather than seat-of-the-pants guessing. Manage your expensive warehouse space more efficiently based upon trends, whether seasonal or based upon other factors during the sales year. Our presentation will include stories from real clients with real-life results. Both Jeff Will and myself, Chip Lowell, are prior Acumen clients. You will then see a real-time demo on inventory optimization by our partner, Tom Glackin, with Velogix. Before we begin, I would also like to thank one of our many longtime consultants, Marilyn Young, for 20 years of superior service with Acumen Corporation. Here's to you, Marilyn. Well, let's get started. Modern inventory control systems became commonplace in distribution about 30 years ago with the introduction of what was known as mini computers. The enterprise software packages for those mini computers are the grandparents of the programs distributors use today for billing, inventory control, accounts receivable, general ledger, payables, etc. But let's focus on inventory control. The distributor's new mini computer and inventory modules replaced their Cardex manual inventory tracking systems. The tedious task of replenishing inventory was cumbersome and inaccurate. Analyzing historical item usage on the cards was at least an improvement over simply taking a walk in the warehouse to see which piles were empty or getting too low. But that was the old way. The newer automated software was faster and more dependable, although it lacked the human touch. Sales teams and management were finally able to get a bit of a handle on what was in stock to sell and ensure their customers' delivery deadlines were being met. Or not. Well, who designed the logic used in the original inventory management programs, the ones that were much the same architecture as those we use today? That was Gordon Graham. He retired back in 1996, but he was the guru of distribution inventory management in those days. As the author of a couple of popular books on the subject, his ideas were about carrying cost, replenishment cost, historical usage, seasonal usage, vendor lead times, and EOQ, economical order quantity, and were widely accepted and copied by systems analysts. Well, as in the days before Graham, when companies were stuck to the old ways, today's many folks are stuck to Graham's way. Well, it's time to move into the 21st century. I come to Acumen as a prior client. I headed up sales, customer care, and IT systems at a high-end PC manufacturer. Well, we were stuck in Graham's way ourselves. Then we met the consultants here at Acumen, who showed us true advanced inventory planning with SAP Business One and Velogix. And boy, did my sales folks become happier. I'd like to also tell you about one of our senior consultants, Jeff Will. Jeff is also a former client who also saw the light, so to speak. Hey, Jeff, tell us a bit about the time you spent with a food products company. I hear it was a bit of a nightmare.
That it was. The company is a food ingredient distributor selling nationwide. They had over 1,000 items in 27 warehouses across the country. All the warehouses were managed using just 3-ring binders.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing the company was profitable. Well, how did Acumen and SAP come into play?
SAP and Velogix allowed us to combine all inventory processes into a single function. The days of inflated inventory to keep the customers happy were reduced dramatically. In fact, we were able to reduce our inventory over $300,000. The result was Vologic's decreased inventory and gave us higher customer satisfaction with on-time deliveries. And our sales folks loved it.
It really comes down to service levels, doesn't it? Well, our guest speaker will have a lot to say about that in a minute. But basically, everyone thinks of service level as the percent of time you want to have stock available to meet demand. If you are into numbers, think of this. Remember, because 100% represents a statistical infinity, a level of 95 to 98% tends to achieve realistic objectives. So, how do you know how to keep levels of what stock at which point? Well, that's a big math problem, and our guest speaker has the answer. Tom Glackin has been an executive with inventory optimization specialists Vologix since 2002, and he's currently serving as senior vice president. During that time, he's worked with hundreds of small to mid-sized companies to enable them to better understand how the use of inventory optimization theories and solutions help companies improve profitability and gain a competitive advantage. He has presented at several regional and national software user and practitioner events. He's also been the featured presenter at numerous other industry events, including webinars and interactive work sessions. Notably, Tom has long been deemed a subject matter expert by APICS, formerly the American Production Inventory Control Society, and has presented to regional and national meetings, as well as other industry-specific conventions and membership symposiums. His expertise and animated presentation style make the subject matter both informative and entertaining. Tom achieved his MBA at Loyola College in Maryland. Well, I'm going to hand the mic over to Tom, and it's my pleasure to introduce Tom Glackin.
And thank you, Chip. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. So I thought I'd begin my session with just providing a little bit of background about Vologix. Vologix founders have been specializing in inventory planning and optimization since 1988. They were actually one of the early innovators in recognizing that the Gordon Graham way could be improved upon. So in 2001, they founded Vologix with a focus on providing powerful planning solutions for small and mid-sized enterprises. We've actually been a SAP solution partner since early 2004 and have maintained a certified integration into SAP Business One since SAP introduced that in 2005. We are currently a global organization. We have customers in 42 countries and continuing to grow. But having said that about our background, there's been one thing that's been consistent with our solutions over the years. And Jeff had touched on this just a few minutes ago. The bottom line is that our inventory optimization solutions help organizations improve their cash flow. And I suspect you may have heard that claim from software providers in the past. Well, through today's session, I'm going to give you some background information on how using inventory automation can not only save a significant amount of time, but can indeed help improve cash flow. And that's essentially what optimization is about at a high level. It's about helping to manage a very tough balancing act by helping to keep inventory costs as low as possible, while enabling a user to be able to meet the anticipated demand at a desired service level or fill rate. So let's pause a second here and just ask yourself, what tools are you using? As Jeff had mentioned just a few minutes ago, the company he was with was actually using paper. What I honestly find today, most organizations are using Excel. And I'm still amazed at some organizations, how big they are. And when I say that, some organizations I've worked with have multi-billion dollars in annual revenue. They're doing their planning on Excel. So think about that. Are you using Excel, reports? Are you using some ERP functionality? Something else to consider. How much time is it taking you to perform the planning and replenishment? And how frequently are you able to review and adjust your target inventory levels? when you think through that, and then the next question, do you use a distribution center? And if so, how do you plan for this and other locations effectively? The net result of these challenges are listed here. I mean, without the proper tools, we find it can be very difficult, if not impossible, to recognize and react to variability in demand in a timely manner. If you consider that with long lead times, many organizations are purchasing from Asia. If you have seasonal items, or if you're adding new items on a regular basis, those challenges can result in stockouts for certain items and low inventory turns for others. And a lot of that stems from the lack of ability to forecast, but forecasting isn't the only piece of the puzzle here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes. So using an automated tool can help to address every one of these challenges. And I really like to emphasize the word help, because even the best tools are that. They're a tool that can help a user focus on managing exceptions. The automated planning that we provide for SAP Business One begins by analyzing historical demand, looking for patterns, and will automatically select the best fit forecasting technique for each item at each location. So you're starting with a very powerful, statistically sound forecast, which you can then modify. But once a forecast has been established, then the real question becomes, how much stock should you have on hand and on order, recognizing that even the best forecast is not perfect? And that's where the real power of the tool comes in. That's in the optimization stage. I'm going to talk a little bit about that on the next couple of slides. You'll see when I get into the software that it has been designed to be very powerful and also easy to use. But more importantly, it enables the user to focus on managing exceptions. So rather than having to go through lengthy reports or do crunch numbers, the tool can really help you focus on managing exceptions. And it also provides true multi-echelon planning, meaning you can plan to bring items into a master warehouse that's replenishing branch locations or retail stores, or perhaps even customer consignment locations. Let's talk briefly about some common approaches to setting reorder points. And I see this almost on a daily basis when people are using Excel. At the lower portion of this slide, you can see an item with 12 months of historical demand. This particular item has a lot of variability in demand, and this variability is not from seasonal patterns. It's truly very random. A very common approach that I hear is, well, to get some sense of what the future demand is going to be, often we'll use a 12-month average. So that's what this red line represents. So that's giving some sense, but then the question becomes, how do you protect yourself? How do you build enough safety stock, or how much safety stock should you carry to meet this next peak in demand, which you know, or you have a very high confidence level that will occur, you just don't know exactly when it will occur. So one of the other things I hear is, you know, my business is dynamic. A 12-month average simply is not dynamic enough. So here's another challenge that results from that. This chart represents a 3-month average, and this is what the 3-month average looked like 3 months ago. So this, for an item like this approach can be very deceiving. And in all honesty, people recognize this. And what I often find is that people are looking, well, I'm looking at a 12-month average, I'm looking at a 3-month average, I'm looking at the same period last year, and they're doing all these mental gymnastics to determine what a safety stock should be. Well, with the automated system available from Velogix for SAP Business One, it addresses that challenge and more. So here at the lower left is that same item. And there's actually enough data here to create a statistically sound forecast that also recognizes that an upward trend is occurring. Or you may be saying, well, Tom, that's still not going to accurately forecast this next peak in demand. Again, I'm very confident it will occur. I just don't know when. So this comes to how much stock should we be carrying to meet that? Well, one of the options with the Velogix is what we call the optimization process. It begins by considering an item's lead time. In this example, it's 15 days for ease of illustration here. But the concept works the same whether it's 5 days, or 150 days or longer. The tool also enables you to determine how frequently you would ideally like to place replenishment orders. And again, here, for ease of illustration, it's twice a month. So the lead time and the order frequency create a planning horizon. The tool then looks at the forecast over the planning horizon. Here it's 110 units over the next 30 days. And here's where it's different than many approaches that are commonly used. Instead of determining the amount of safety stock you want, either in units or perhaps periods of supply, one of the options with this tool is tell it what service level or fill rate you would like to achieve, and the tool will automatically calculate a stocking quantity. And the stocking quantity represents the amount of stock that should be on hand and on order. In this example, it's 158 units. That includes 110 for the forecast, and for this item includes 48 in safety stock. And that's due to the fact that there's a significant amount of variability. There's an upward trend occurring, and we're targeting a relatively high service level. So let's look at a different item. Here's an item with much more predictable demand, resulting in the same forecast. Using all the same planning parameters for this item results in a stocking quantity of 119 instead of 158 in the first example. And the difference here is you can achieve that same high service level of 99% with much less safety stock for this item. So this is what we mean when we're talking about optimization. And the tool is actually recalculating this stocking quantity for every item at every location every day automatically. So it's always staying in sync with the changing business requirements. Part of what enables us to do that is that it's doing some very powerful statistics behind the scenes. Part of that is an exchange curve analysis. So if you remember statistics and you can envision that bell curve, we're creating that. We're determining what a standard deviation is. And then we're going out on the tail of the curve depending on where you set the statistical confidence level. Now, I've just thrown out several terms around statistics. One of the nice things about this tool is you do not have to be a math specialist to use it. All you really have to understand is the higher I set the service level, the greater amount of stock the tool is going to be recommending. Let me just show one final slide before moving into the software. And this is to give you an overview of our integration with SAP Business One. We have a very tight data synchronization that occurs automatically that keeps the planning database in sync. Actually, one of the nice things about this particular approach is if you're not currently a Business One user and you decide to move to Business One, you can actually bring in up to 48 months of historical demand from your current ERP application directly into the planning database. So the first day you go live with Business One, you can be working with very powerful planning information. The tool begins by analyzing the historical demand, looking for patterns so it can select the best fit forecasting technique. The very first test it does is a seasonal test. If it detects a seasonal pattern, it then does an additional test to determine if there's a trend occurring. And if there is a trend occurring, then it tests to see if that trend more prevalent year over year or more prevalent during recent months. So there's a lot of analysis going on to create that forecast. If it's not seasonal, it's looking at some other factors to pick the best fit forecasting technique and create a forecast. Now, even the best system-generated forecast can't include everything that a user may know about their business. Perhaps a special promotion is coming up, or you may have a customer coming in with a large or anticipated order. Well, you have the ability to modify the forecast. But once the forecast has been established, then the tool goes through that optimization process I talked about on the two previous slides to set the stocking quantities. Once they've been established, it then provides some strategic visibility. It will show you where you have excess and inactive stock. It analyzes the on-hand inventory and compares it to the forecast to give you a sense of how long the on-hand quantities are anticipated to last. And any items that are short, it will automatically suggest the appropriate replenishments. That can be in the form of purchase orders, transfer orders, or production orders, depending on your preferred and pre-configured replenishment process for each item at each location. Those recommendations are presented for easy editing and review and automatically create the appropriate transactions within the business software. So with that, I'm going to switch to the software and do a brief overview. Let me see here. Apologize for this delay. All right. So right now we're looking at SAP Business One. And I'm really just going to focus on the advanced planning functionality. If you want additional information about any other functionality, please reach out to the Acumen team. But with Business One, you get easy visibility, the ability to easily manage inventory. Here I pulled up an example item. This could be any one of your items. You're able to maintain purchasing data, establish a preferred vendor, you easily get visibility to your inventory positions across all locations. Well, with the advanced planning tool from Belogix, you also get to view some very powerful planning information. So here in the inventory planning details for this item at Warehouse 1, you can see that we have visibility into up to 48 months of historical demand. One of the reasons I selected this particular item is if you look closely, you'll notice March, April, and May have higher demand than January and February. It then tapers off in June, July, and August, and then there's another peak in September and October. And that's occurring consistently each year. So this item is actually very seasonal in nature. The tool automatically recognizes that and automatically creates a seasonal forecast. So the forecast down here has been created by Belogix. Now the user has the ability to modify the forecast, but before I do that, let's just take a look. You'll notice with the forecast, it's picking up not only the seasonal patterns, but it's also looking at recent trends. So we sold 7,600 of these in 2014. That was down a little bit in 2015. Well, that's being built into the forecast automatically moving forward. So all of this has been done automatically, but as I mentioned, you have the ability to modify the forecast. So I could easily come in here and override the forecast. If there was some unusual demand for any given month, I could easily come in here and modify the history as well. But once the forecast has been established, then the tool, if you recall, it looks at the forecast over the planning horizon. Right now, that's 1,325 units. The planning horizon for this item is 90-day lead time. We're reviewing this weekly, so 7-day order frequency. We're looking out 97 days. For this item, we're targeting a very high service level, 99%. Using all of that information, the tool automatically calculates this stocking quantity. So it's saying, hey, based off all the information that's available, it's recommending that we should have 1,446 units on hand and on order right now. It then looks to see what is on hand, on order, and it's essentially doing the math to determine whether replenishment is needed or not. So for this item at this location right now, our replenishment is not needed. But let me just talk a little bit more about this in this database. Warehouse 1 is the distribution center. It is actually supporting replenishing these two stores. So if I go take a look at one of the other stores, one of the other locations, you'll notice in this particular location, it's got completely different demand pattern. Not only is it much lower demand, but it's not seasonal at this location. So the tool, again, is automatically picking up that seasonal forecast. Different lead time, we're replenishing once a week at this location. It only takes 7 days to transfer it from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's automatically calculating the stocking quantity, determining whether replenishments are needed or not. If I go back to the East Coast here, you'll notice that this historical demand actually includes all demand from all locations. And if I want to get some visibility as to where that's coming from, I can easily click in here and I can see for 2016 the demand for each location. So very powerful, but yet very easy to drill in and determine what's occurring. So with this, I'm actually going to switch gears now, and I'm going to move from a very detailed perspective to a very tactical, how you may use this on a daily, weekly basis. So to perform your replenishment planning, you simply click on the replenishment plan. You get immediate visibility to every item at every location that requires replenishment right now. If I look down here at the lower portion, I can see there's 41 lines, total quantity of 24,000 units, total value of over $500,000. You also get visibility to weight and volume information, so in case you're trying to fill shipping containers. So at this point, a user would typically, a very common approach is, well, tell me what I need to purchase from a particular supplier. So If I click in here, let's say today I want to plan for Far East imports. I can easily click in here and filter, and I can see that I'm now down to 7 items, total quantity of 223 units, total value of just under $27,000. If I was trying to fill a shipping container or a truck, I can see how well I've done in doing that. This is actually a domestic supplier, and here if I place an order of $5,000, I will get free freight. So they will pay the freight for me if I place an order of $5,000. So I want to be sure to do that. I can see that the actual recommendations are $26,000. So if I felt comfortable, if I've been using the tool for a while and felt comfortable, I could simply click here and approve all items. So I'd like to pause here a second and just kind of recap what we've done. I've just logged in, and literally within seconds, I can see what I need to order from this supplier, and I could actually approve these quantities. And if I hit submit right now, I would be creating a purchase order that's going to be sending items to 3 different locations. So I'd like you to think about that and compare that to your current processes. If you're using Excel today, how much time and effort is it taking you to get to a point to where you're ready to place an order? Once you are ready to place an order, how much time does it take you to enter that order if you don't have that process automated? Here, I've been through all of that literally within seconds. In this particular example, I'm targeting free freight. Well, let's say I had not met the free freight yet, and I wanted to perhaps increase the total value of this order. Well, I could do that by changing any of these quantities, but what I may also want to do is look at all items I get from this particular supplier. And so I'm going to show all planned items, and you'll notice those ones I had selected earlier now spread out because by default it's sorting by item number. I need to sort this in a meaningful manner, and I'm going to sort it by the shortage ratio. The shortage ratio is actually calculated by the tool, and when it is a negative number, it indicates there is a need for the item now. The more negative the number, the greater the relative need. So the items I need the most are at the top of the list. That brings us down here. If I look at all the negatives, those are the items we were reviewing before I viewed all. If I wanted to add another item to this order, this item would be the next best candidate. And the reason is right now, the shortage ratio is 0. It's in perfect balance right now. We don't have too much, we don't have too little, it's all good, but it's most likely going to be on the next order anyway, so perhaps I want to add some of this item to the order. So I can do that simply by entering the quantity there. If I scroll down, actually let's just take a look at this item here. This item, the shortage ratio is 27. This is an extreme example, but it's saying we have already committed to over 27 periods of supply. This is probably not the best item to add to this order to fill it out. So at this point, I can go ahead and place an order. And again, let's just go ahead and do that to complete the process. You actually get the choice, do I want to create an actual purchase order, a draft purchase order, or a purchase quotation? Go ahead and say, yes, we want to create a purchase order. And again, literally within seconds, I've created a purchase order with 8 line items, and we can go take a quick look at that. So we'll go into purchasing in business 1. And if I scroll back here, this is the purchase order that I just created. And you'll notice it's covering 3 locations. One of the nice things about SAP Business 1 is that you had the ability to split purchase orders. And I set that to do this by default. So essentially what happened when this purchase order was created, this is purchase order 409, it actually created the master order, but it also created 3 subordinates. If I scroll forward one, 409-1, that's covering warehouse 1. So these are the items going to be shipped to warehouse 1. That's going to have different logistics information than the other subordinates here. If I scroll to the next one, 409-2 is going to warehouse 2, and 409-3 is going to warehouse 4. So you can easily plan for multiple locations and very quickly execute the plan. Just briefly go back. As I mentioned, the tool can also recommend purchase orders also recommend production orders. So you'll see here it's recommending some makes, and down here you'll see it's recommending transfer orders. So you can plan for every item, every location, very quickly and very easily. Now, in addition to that very tactical information and functionality, the tool is also providing some very powerful strategic information. And let's come into the investment analysis, and I'm going to sort this by difference in value in descending order, and I'll explain what I'm doing here in just a moment. So in the investment analysis, it provides you with immediate visibility to the value of the inventory that's been committed to. In my demo database here, I've committed about $5.5 million of inventory. Right below that, I can see the ideal inventory level based off of the optimization process. And while this may seem like an extreme example, I've actually seen potential reductions like this when we first go live. And the reason is, without tools like this, inventory can become out of balance. And that's exactly what's occurring here. While we could have the potential to perhaps reduce this inventory by over $3 million, the real opportunity here is even greater than that. And let me explain that. So what I've done is I've sorted this information for each item at each location, comparing the current investment and the difference in value between that and the ideal investment. And what this is saying is this first item on the list, we may have committed to over $600,000 more than needed for that one item alone. If I look down the first top 10, 15 items, I'm quickly adding up to this $3 million. What's occurring here, this inventory is out of balance. If I scroll down to the other extreme, you're going to see negative quantities here, negative values here. These are the ones that were in that replenishment plan we were just looking at. So just to recap here, while there's an opportunity to reduce inventory levels, the real opportunity here is even greater than that, and the reason is this inventory is out of balance, and this tool makes it very easy for you to see where those opportunities are for optimizing your inventory levels and your investment. The tool also provides some very powerful reports. Let's just take a quick look at some of the ones here. You get this history exceptions report. It identifies any item that has unusual demand. That's either unusually high or unusually low. So the user can easily go in here and determine what's occurring. If it was an unusually high demand, perhaps it was a customer come in and made a large one-time buy that you may want to remove from the history. If it's unusually low, for some reason you didn't meet the forecast by a significant amount, it might be something you want to review with the sales team and say, what's going on? One other tool that you get is some very powerful, a very nice graphical view of your inventory. So on this report, you get visibility to the value of the inventory by location. At the lower left, you get visibility to a graphical view of that investment analysis we were looking at just now. And on the right-hand side of this report, you actually get what we call the forward aging. This is not a traditional stock aging report telling you how long the items have been sitting in the warehouse. This is a forward-looking report. It's looking at what is currently sitting in the warehouse or each other and every other location, and determining, classifying the inventory into 3 categories. I've set this to look forward 6 months, so it's comparing the on-hand quantity to the forecast for the next 6 months. And what this is indicating, in Warehouse 1, we have about $1.1 million of inventory that's forecasted to be sold over the next 6 months. Of those same items, there's about $150,000 worth more than needed for the next 6 months. That's excess inventory. And in my demo database here, there's about $50,000 worth that hasn't any demand for at least a year. If I want to see some details behind that, I can easily click into this pie chart. Let's click into the blue area for Warehouse 1. And you get immediate visibility to some very powerful information. So let's take a look at the second item on the list. We have 255 on hand with a total value of about $50,000. The forecast for the next 6 months is 120 units. So that's saying we're going to sell about $24,000 worth of that. That means that right now we have 135 units more than needed for the next 6 months. Almost $27,000 worth of cash is going to be tied up for 6 months or longer. That's a very long time to have that tied up. If I look down, there's a few other items where we have excess inventory. And that result is right now there's about $150,000 worth more than needed for the next 6 months. If I could turn that into cash, that's freeing up not only warehouse space, but actual cash for the organization. In this database, there's about $46,000 worth. This item here hasn't had any demand for at least a year. And in this view, you actually get visibility into the actual replenishment requirements as well. And it just so happens by coincidence, in this database, I should be ordering $150,000 of items, and I have $156,000 worth more than I need for other items. If I could turn that, if I could get rid of that excess inventory and turn that into cash, I could meet my shortages without any additional investment. So this can be a very powerful tool to help organizations meet those requirements. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the slides and conclude the session here, and then we'll open this up to any questions you may have. So to recap, this is where we see value typically within the first year of using the solution. We've talked about inventory reductions, and we often see within the first year 20% or more inventory reduction. However, at the same time, we're also seeing reduced stockouts, reduced shortages by having a better mix of the appropriate items available. We often see actually in reality, we're seeing about 60 to 90% of the time required to perform planning using manual processes be reduced here through the use of this automation. Also reduce expedited shipping costs and often see increased sales by having a better mix of the appropriate items available. Let's take a look at a real-life case study. This is a customer that we implemented Vologix and SAP Business One, and in 3 months we went back and talked to them. In 3 short months, they have reduced their inventory by 12%. The person who was doing their purchasing had other responsibilities, and we see that very common in small and mid-sized enterprises. He was spending 2 days a week during the purchasing for the organization. After implementing Vologix, he has actually reduced that to 2 hours a week. So think about that. He went from 2 days a week to 2 hours a week. He got almost 2 full days a week back to be doing other activities for the organization. In that 3-month period, a very short period of time, they had an increase in revenue of 10% over the previous year that they attributed directly to better inventory availability, and that was evident in the reduced back orders. So they actually received a return on their investment in less than 3 months. We went back a year later and talked to them. They had reduced their inventory by 20%. They still had that 10% increase in revenue that they attributed directly to better inventory availability. They reduced their back orders by 70%. They eliminated 60% of their inactive stock. And one of the things that was a surprise for them, due to the fact that their person who was doing their purchasing now had additional time available and had a forecast they could depend upon, he was actually able to sit down with their key suppliers, and on average, he negotiated a discount of 3% across the board by committing to volume purchases for the year. So that was an unexpected benefit. So if you were to speak to Scott Toll, I mean, he's very, just absolutely loves the results that he gets from the use of Vologix with SAP Business One. So to just recap here, what we talked about today is how organizations can safely reduce their inventory by 15 to 20% or more, how the automated planning and optimization saves time and can reduce overhead. It improves item availability. It can help you improve customer satisfaction and increase sales. The automation saves time and money. The bottom line is it does provide a very powerful and rapid return on investment, and frequently the value gained from the use of Vologix can often generate enough positive cash flow to pay for the entire Business One solution. So with that, Jeff, Chip, I'd like to turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. As always, I always enjoy watching your presentation. I kind of geek out on the numbers, but that's just me. I love the math behind it, and I think that a lot of the folks on this call feel the same way. Sometimes you get overwhelmed by just the mountain of SKUs and what's going on, and sometimes you just let stuff sit because there's so much to pay attention to. But you've shown some very, very clear tools and clear ways to see what's going on in order to both reduce what you don't need and get in what you do need on time. And thank you very much for that. And thank you so much also, Jeff, for your input on the call. And thank you to all of our attendees. You know, if what we showed you today sounds like something you'd like to know more of, even have a personal demo at your facility, just give us a call at the number on the screen or email me, chipl@acumencorp.com. We would love to talk further with you about this. By the way, we have recorded this webinar, and all registrants will receive an email, both with thanks for being here and with a link to view it or show it to other folks in your organization. Thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.